Hey, well, good morning, wildlife. How you guys doing? You guys good? Awake? Hey, I want to give a big shout out to this row right here with Leigh and all you guys because no one else wanted that row. So good job, guys. Good job. Hey, well, I'm excited as we kick off this brand new series. My name is Johnny, and if we haven't had the chance to meet, I'm on staff here in Wildlife, and I'm really excited to be with you guys as we go on this journey together. We are launching a series this weekend called Me, Myself, and iPhone, and we're going to be looking at how we can manage the screens in our life with Jesus and the Bible and our faith in Jesus in mind. So I am excited. So a couple things as we head into this time. Make sure you have a message note sheet with you. If you have no idea what that is, it looks just like this. If you have one, just like wave it in the air. This is a great way to follow along. It's not a test. It's not a quiz. I'm not trying to trick you in any way of like, all right, what'd you get for number 3? No, we're not trying to trick you. It's just a great way to hopefully remember some things that we're going to be discussing this morning. And also, it's a great way if your parents ask you, like, hey, what did you learn? You can grab this and you can be like, instead of just blankly staring into their soul, you can be like, oh, I learned this or that or something like that. So it's also a great place to draw something. So if you want to draw, let's draw a parakeet eating a lizard. All right. I don't know why, but that's the circle of life, guys. Hey, let's go ahead and pray, and we will jump right in. Jesus, thank you so much for this morning. We are excited. We're excited that, man, you are with us in this space. Jesus, you are awesome. And we're just asking that you would speak very loudly to all of us this morning. And it's in your name we all said, amen. Hey, well, I have a confession to make. I actually have a lot of screens in my own life. I have an iPhone, I have an iPad. I use the iPad for teaching. I have a TV, a couple TVs at home. I have a PlayStation 5. I have a laptop. I have a lot of I have a screen even in my car. I have a lot of screens in my life. And I'm excited as we begin this brand new series, learning how we can manage the screens in our life, because the reality is that all of us are surrounded by screens. We are all surrounded by screens every single day. Even right now, we have a screen, a couple of screens even up here. We are surrounded by screens everywhere we go. And I'm excited as we go on this journey together, whether you have an iPhone or a smartphone or not. I believe there's going to be some super good principles and a lot of things that will be valuable to your life as we navigate this digital world together. Now, I want to take you back to my 7th grade year in middle school. I was in Wildlife just like you guys, like a million years ago, sitting in the same seats. We had different carpet at that time. More gross looking carpet. But years ago, I remember in 7th grade is when I finally got my very first cell phone. Now, I didn't have an iPhone or a Google Pixel or anything like that. iPhones at that time actually were like very like brand new, and they were like a bajillion dollars. And my parents were like, no, sorry. But I actually had a flip phone. And an image on the screen, this isn't exactly what I had, but it's very similar to what I had. If we have that image for me, Kaden. So this was a Razor flip phone. When I was in middle school, this was like the iPhone before iPhones even were a thing. What blows my mind, all the middle schoolers in this room, iPhones have been just around for your entire life, which is crazy to me, and it makes me feel old. But a flip phone like this, you actually had to flip it, and it was like so cool when you had to hang up on someone because that's how you end a phone call. You could do it in like a really sassy way. You can just be like, "All right, business done," and you just like flip it, and it's some like there'd be a lot of people that try to flip it like crazy, and it would sometimes like actually break the hinge and stuff. And there was this weird way of texting. There wasn't any touch screens, at least on this version. And you actually had to, on the 9 like keypad thing, you actually had to press a number a couple of different times in order to get a certain letter. Texting took like 10 minutes for like one text. And I actually had the awesomeness that every text I sent was like $1. So I was very limited to when I could text or even receive text messages. And then later on, or actually earlier in my life, my very first video game system was a Nintendo Game Boy Advance. An image on the screen here. This old school, I accidentally sold, not accidentally, I knew exactly what I was doing. I sold this to GameStop years ago for like 25 bucks, and now these are worth like 200 something, and I'm so mad at myself. But this Game Boy Advance was super cool. The screen was like an inch big, not even joking. And there was no backlight to this screen, which means you actually had to have like a flashlight if you were to play in the dark to like hold to like see what Mario was doing and what he was up to. But it was super. It took AA batteries, and it was like the coolest thing ever. And as I look around, screens have come a very long way. Let's kind of take a step back and look at some of the screens in your life and also my life as well. First one on the screen, raise your hand if you have a PlayStation 5 or you've heard of the PlayStation 5. You have a PS4? Very cool. Let's go to the next one on the screen, or an Xbox. Is there any Xbox people out there? All right, all right. I'm a PlayStation guy because I like good quality gaming. I know we can argue about that later. Let's go to the next one on the screen. Raise your hand if you have this or if you've seen it. Nintendo Switch, right? All right, all right. Let's go to the next one. An iPhone or a smartphone. A smartphone. All right, all right. For me personally, I have an iPhone. It's right here. It's super cool. You know when you first open like your new phone or something, you get it for Christmas, and you like treat it like it's your baby for the next like week, and then you just start throwing it everywhere. You're like, it has a case on it. Don't worry. Yesterday, my wife and I went to the mall for some reason, and I opened the door for her because I'm a gentleman, and then we're leaving, and then all of a sudden I hear her phone just like hit the cement, and she's the kind of lady that she's like, it's fine. And I'm over here like, oh my gosh, it was fine. But I was like, oh my gosh. Let's go to the next one on the screen here. An Oculus VR headset. Yeah. Or just a VR headset. Like old school VR. You just take your phone and you just put it right here and you are in the VR world. Let's go to the next one. A TV. Everyone has a TV. Maybe not the Amish, but everyone has a TV. Let's go to the next one on the screen. The suspense is killing me. Here we go. The home computer. Anyone else just have like a. All right, let's go to the next one. A school laptop or a Chromebook. Yeah, Chromebooks. Yep. All right, let's go to the next one. There's screens at the dentist's office. Anyone agree with me? Like they are trying to take out the cavity and you're watching Animal Planet on the TV. All right, let's go to the next one. Or even like a TV in the car. Like if your parents have a Tesla, you have like an iPad just right there, right? Hey, and what I'm getting at is that we are all surrounded by screens every single day, every single moment of our lives, and we are surrounded by screens. It's just part of our life. And hear me, screens are a great thing. They're awesome sometimes. They are a good thing. But if you ever heard this thing, if you have an iPhone or an iPad, there's this thing called screen time on these devices. You know what I'm talking about? Spoiler. And with screen time, it kind of shows you how long you are on a certain device. Now, I want to share my screen time. I had all the our staff before this kind of share like, hey, what's your weekly screen time? And are you even aware of how much you're on a screen? Now, this is for my story. This is just for my iPhone. My iPad shares a different story. It's a little less time because I usually use it for teaching. But for my weekly phone usage on my screen, I'm a little afraid to share this. It's 6 hours and 8 minutes in a week. In a week. It's what it says. It's what it says. Now, I want to share, what do you guys think the weekly screen time for the average preteen teenager is? What do you think? In the orange. How long, Jacob? Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah. Isaiah. 24 24 hours. All right. Hey, well, here's your first fill in on your note sheet. It might have been spoiled a little bit. Um, on the screen, here is your first fill in. The average teenager is on a screen for 7 hours and 22 minutes each week. Now, again, this is an average. For some of you, you're like, that seems extremely low. Um, I don't know why your response is like, that's really low. Like you're proud that yours is like 30 hours. You're like, that's really low. Mine's like 40. All right. I wake up and I'm in the digital world. Um, but that is the average screen time is 7 hours and 22 minutes. Now, I think for some of us right now, we might be even tempted to now grab our phone or go home immediately and be like, what is my screen time? Or you actually really know and you're like, I don't really want to know more. It's high. I know that. What I'm getting at is that when it comes to the Bible, when it comes to God's word, when it comes to the time of Jesus, the word iPhone, the word screen, technology, the digital world, those words were never even mentioned. Can you believe it? Like the iPhone is not in the book of Proverbs. Can you believe that? That's kind of weird, right? But what's important for us as we, for the next couple of minutes, process screens in the digital world that all of us are just consumed in, and it can be a good thing or a bad thing. What I want to do for the next couple of minutes is give us some really good principles of how we can then navigate this digital world together. Sound good? So, your next fill in on your note sheet is this: screens aren't all bad, but they can be a source for temptation. Screens aren't all bad. Screens can be a good thing. Screens are a way that we learn and are then educated in so many different areas. Like for you, you probably use some type of screen to do school. During COVID, all of us, we went online for our schooling through a screen. So screens aren't all bad, but they can be a source for temptation. Now, what I mean by this is that we should not just get rid of our screens, get rid of our phones, move to Pennsylvania and become Amish, all right, and churn some butter and just get rid of all the like forget deodorant, like we shouldn't do that. Don't forget deodorant, all right? But that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that screens aren't all bad, but they can become bad if we allow them to. Screens are not a bad thing, but they can be a source for temptation. There's a lot of awful things through our screens that will lead us into temptation, but it can also be a great source for resources, but ultimately they can be a source for temptation. Now, in First Thessalonians in the New Testament, chapter 5, on your note sheet, just follow along with me. It's also going to be on the screen. This is what the Bible says when it comes to temptation, holding on to what is good. It says this: do not stifle the Holy Spirit, do not scoff at prophecies, but test everything that is said. Hold on to what is good and stay away from every kind of evil. Now, if you have a pen with you, underline those last two sentences. Hold on to what is good, stay away from every kind of evil. Now, what this is saying here is that, hey, there can be a lot of evil things when it comes to our screens, comes to our phones, and those evil things can lead to a lot of temptation. And maybe for you, you're like, I don't even want those evil things, but sometimes we kind of just find ourselves surrounded by temptation because we're not setting good boundaries when it comes to screen times and other things like that. So what I want you guys just to be aware of is that be aware that temptation can come from certain screens in our life. So that's our first one, all right? Screens aren't all bad, but they can be a source for temptation. Now, the second thing I want you guys to know is your second fill in, which is this: when it comes to screens, use discernment with what you put on the screen. Use discernment. And I'll talk about what discernment means in a second. Use discernment with what you put on your screen. Now, discernment, another word for that is be wise. Choose wisdom when it comes to what you are consuming in your life. Because what you watch influences you in a good way or even a bad way. For example, if you were to watch YouTube videos, and I love watching YouTube videos, I love watching like Star Wars theory videos or Marvel theory videos, like what is Thrawn up to in Ahsoka, like all these things, right? Um, and if you've ever watched a YouTube video before, you probably have seen that after the video ends, you see a suggested list of other videos that some are similar to what you just watched, and then there's some other videos that maybe are completely different from the topic you just watched. Now, some of those suggestions are awesome and they're good. Like more Star Wars, give me more Star Wars, right? But some other videos are actually not so good. Maybe it's a video you shouldn't watch, and maybe the algorithm is like being aware of like who you are, your age or whatever, and it's suggesting certain things to you, and you are like, okay, I don't think I would be allowed to watch this, but maybe like there's no one else around. And you're like, well, who would know? Or think of it like this with Netflix. Say if you have a Netflix account, or your parent, let's be honest, your parents have a Netflix account, and your parents are like, hey, we're gonna go have date night. Your mom and dad, we're gonna be out of here. We'll be back in like 3 hours. So you're home alone, your Netflix is logged in. You can watch really whatever you want because no one's home, right? And you start scrolling through Netflix, and there's like a lot of good shows. Maybe you want to catch up on. You've heard of shows that a friend at school has talked to you about. And then there's kind of as you scroll down, there's some things that you're like, oh, that looks interesting. But if your parents were here, they would not let you watch that TV show or that movie. We need to be using discernment and kind of filtering through our digital world what we should be consuming. And with discernment, with choosing wisdom, we need to allow God's Spirit to guide us in what to choose that is good and pleasing to Jesus. Now, Paul in Ephesians chapter 5, he wrote this letter to a church in Ephesus, which is why it's called Ephesians. And he says this: don't be fooled by those who try to excuse these sins, for the anger of God will fall on all who disobey him. Don't participate in the things these people do, for once you were full of darkness, but now you have light from the Lord. So live as people of light, for this light within you produces only what is good and right and true. Carefully determine what pleases the Lord. Now, what Paul is saying here is, hey, don't be fooled by the foolish people around you. Don't be easily tricked by the people around you that try to influence you, and they make excuses for the sin in their life. For example, say you have a friend at school, or maybe it's not even a friend, it's just someone you kind of know, like you're in the same class, you're in the same science class, whatever it is. Um, and they come to you and they show you like this video on YouTube, and like, oh, I don't think my parents would be happy that I'm watching this, even like a little glimpse of this video. Or they tell you about this TV show or this movie that is like, that's not appropriate. But they're like, "Yeah, you should just go home and watch it. It's like super cool." And you're like, I don't know. What Paul is saying here is that, hey, you need to be thinking differently than the people around you, and you should not be living like the rest of the world because Jesus has chosen you. He is calling you to something much bigger and much greater. And you have God's light inside of you. And this light will produce good things in your life because of who Jesus is. Now, here's a simple phrase to remember kind of what we're talking about here. So, if you've ever seen the Geico commercial, like, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more in car insurance, like the little Geico here, like that's really not what I'm talking about. But there's this simple phrase, GIGO. We can call it Geico if we want to. GIGO on the screen. It stands for garbage in, garbage out. Garbage in, garbage out. what you watch, what you consume in your life, if it's garbage, which means it's just not good, it's stinky, it's not good, how you live your life will then kind of also be garbage, will not be a good way to live. If you fill your life with garbage, your life will look a lot like garbage. Jesus has a much bigger plan for your life. He wants you to thrive. Remember the series we just ended last week? So we should be consuming good things in our life, not garbage. Because if we bring garbage into our lives, garbage will then come out through our actions, through our words. Our minds will be consumed with garbage, and we'll start looking at people a certain way. We'll start be looking at certain topics a certain way. Garbage, Jesus doesn't want garbage in our life, and if we consume garbage, we're going to live a life of garbage. Now, all of us have a choice to make. All of us do. Maybe you have a choice what meal you get every Tuesday for family dinner night or whatever. Like we all have choices to make. And I want to challenge us that are we as wildlife going to allow limits, accountability, limits in our life? Now, what I mean by that is that are we going to invite parents, your parents, into your life when it comes to managing the screens in your life? Are you going to allow your life group leaders to keep you accountable, to walk you through this digital age? For example, if you have an iPhone, um, I have an iPhone, or if you have an Android, maybe there's a variation of this. I don't have an Android, so I don't really know. Michael, correct me if I'm wrong. But if you have an iPhone, you have a way that you can limit how long you are on a certain app. For example, I have a limit on how long I can go onto Instagram every single day because I know myself that if I don't have a limit, I will just keep watching reels and reels. I'll be like, that puppy is so adorable. Like, I'll just keep doing that all day long if I don't have a limit in my life. But if you have an iPhone, you may not be aware of this, that when your time is up, say you're scrolling on Instagram or YouTube or whatever it is, and it says like your time is up for the day. If you don't know this, you can actually get around that a little bit, and it's kind of like not a good thing. You can actually be like extend it for like a minute, extend it for 15 minutes, or you can just ignore it for the entire day and just keep on scrolling and watching puppy videos all day. Um, Now that is not allowing the limitation of like, all right, I'm going to take a break from this iPhone app, so that you can step away from your screen. So what I'm getting at is that do you have your parents or your life group leader like invited into that moment in your life where they can help, like maybe they put a password on your phone so that when you're done for YouTube for the day, you can't, like, if you don't know the password, you're like, I guess I'm done for the day. So here's the action step, what I want you guys to live out this week, not just you guys, me as well, your life group leaders, the leaders in this room, all of us need this. Here's the action step: commit to accountability and balance of screen time. Commit to accountability and the balance of screen time. What that means is that you are inviting someone into your life that has some sense of authority, someone that you really, really trust, and that you really value their opinion. So, for example, maybe one of your life group leaders, you love them because they're awesome, and you really trust their opinion, and you're inviting them and like, hey, I realize that I'm on Instagram for like 5 hours a day. If you're like, that's it, you're like, if that's more, oh gosh. And you're like, I'm realizing I need to have some limitation in my life so I'm not always on this app. Or it can even be TikTok as well, whatever it is in your life. And you're inviting your parents or your life group leader or a really good friend, and you're asking them to help you be accountable to manage the balance of screen time. In Hebrews chapter 10, 24 to 25, on your note sheet, also on the screen, it'll say this: let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works. And let us not neglect our meeting together as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now, that the day of his return is drawing near. Now, there's a lot going on in those couple of verses, but the words I notice are the words us, one another, and together. And what this passage is talking about is that we need to be inviting other people into our lives to help us out. We can't do life alone. So maybe again, it's inviting your life group into whatever is going on. Like, man, I'm on my phone way too much, or I'm playing way too many video games. Like, there's this thing on the PlayStation 5. I have a PlayStation 5. And there's this thing they added a few months ago where it actually shows how many hours you put into a certain game. Um, and I was so sad with what I saw. And I have a friend that likes to play on his PC Master Race, whatever it is. And I don't remember exactly the number, but he had like over 1,000 hours in one game. And if you were to do the math, it's well over 1,000, but I don't remember the exact number. It's a lot. um, but if you were to do the math, how many hours there are in a day? There's 24. How many hours there are in a month and a year? Like, that's a lot of time. Maybe not wasted, because I think games can be a good thing. It can relieve stress, but like, if you are always on a digital device and you are like ignoring the people around you, the things around you, like, that can be a bad thing. So what if wildlife looked different, that we are actually inviting people into our lives to help us out? Here's a couple of questions I want you guys just to ponder on. If you want to write them down, you can. But here's some questions I want you to think about. Do you have people in your life that know your phone password? Or if you have a phone password, like, do you have people in your life that have your iPhone password? Hopefully you do. Here's another question. If I, Johnny, if I asked to see your smartphone, what would your immediate response be? Would your immediate response be like, why? It's a good question. Like, why? I'd be like, yeah, why am I asking for that? But like, what's your immediate response? And why is that your response? How long are you all on screens for every day or every week? And what I want you guys just to think about is like, how many hours or how much time are you putting into the digital world? Are you even aware of how much time you're putting into screens in your life? And do you have people in your life that they were like, "Hey, can I see your phone?" Or maybe you have your one of your parents. Every week they ask anytime they're like, "Hey, let me see your phone," and that's part of like your agreement that you can have this iPhone, but they're like, "But I get to see whatever you're doing on your iPhone." Do you have people in your life that are just helping you out? Because here's the thing, as we wrap up this time together, for the next 4 weeks, we are going to be on this journey discussing screen time, social media, and everything in between. And I'll be honest, maybe for you, you're like, I don't have an iPhone. I have a Kindle, or whatever it is. Like, I don't have a lot of like phones or gaming, whatever it is. Stay with us. This is going to be a great series to help you understand more of when it comes to screens in our lives. We should not be letting screens like dictate what we do. So here's the big thing I want you guys to remember. The last thing on your note sheet, it'll be on the screen. Write this down. No screen should control you, but instead be controlled by God's Spirit. No screen should control you, but instead be controlled by God's Spirit. Now, as we are just unpacking, kind of just scratching the surface of screen times in our life, it is important to understand that there should be nothing in your life that controls you except God's Spirit. Now, for example, I shared this last night in Saturday night, but there's this app on social media called Be Real. You guys know what I'm talking about? Some of us, if you have one, awesome. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I think it could be a bad thing. And what, from my understanding, I don't have a Be Real because I'm just real in general. Thank you. But from what I understand about Be Real is that in order, it kind of like asks you or tells you like, hey, it's time to post a photo for the day, right? And then for you to see your friends' posts or photos or whatever, you have to post something in order to, see whatever your friends are up to, right? Now, that sounds kind of cool. Like, oh, it's kind of like collabing together in the social media world to kind of see what your friends are up to. But what I want to challenge you with, if that's you, if you have a friend that had to be real, like, how much power does that app have in your life that the immediate response is like, yep, I got to post something because I want to see what my friends are up to? Like, that has a lot of power in your life. So instead of being controlled by the screens or the apps or the video games or whatever in our lives, let's take a step back and just ask God, would you be in control of my life? So as the band comes out, as we go into one last song of worship, I want to just challenge us that as we go throughout these next 4 weeks, as we unpack the reality of screen time, social media, phone usage, again, I would encourage you, go home today or right after wildlife, check how much time are you putting onto your screen time. If you need help figuring that out, talk to a staff. We'll would love to help you because like I was a little bit surprised. I was like, that's a lot of time on Instagram and it's a lot of time on Amazon for some reason. Like that was one of my top four is Amazon. I don't know why. I guess as you get older, you're like, man, I need some more snacks. Um, but as we head into this last song of worship, I want us just to be thinking about the screen time in our life. So I'm going to invite you guys to go ahead and close your eyes. Let's go ahead and pray, and then we're going to jump into this last song of worship. Jesus, thank you so much for this time. We're grateful as we're just unpacking and going on this journey together of understanding screens in our lives from TVs to smartphones to iPads to computers to the TVs. We're just unpacking this journey together of man, are we allowing the screens in our life to control us? Or are we allowing you to guide us on this path of life? Jesus, we're grateful that you're with us. And as we go into this last song of worship, would you just remind us that you are here? And it's in your name. We all said, Amen.